Mike Tannenbaum. He's been in these battles, ESPN NFL front office insider. You can see him on Get Up, SportsCenter, NFL Live. Let's look at the 6 openings. Let's start with the worst opening.
I would say Arizona, Dan, given the fact that the uncertainty of Kyler Murray, the number of good young players on the contract. I think Marvin Harrison could be a superstar. Trey McBride's a very good player. But beyond that, I think there's a lot more questions than answers in Arizona.
All right. Next on the list would be?
Well, I would say Vegas, but like that cuts both ways because if you get Fernando Mendoza, and in my opinion, someone like Kurt Signetti, who I think would be a fascinating hire, that could be truly transformational. So we'll see how that goes. I think there's a lot of work.
Wait. Hold on. You're talking about a package deal for the Raiders with Kurt Signetti.
Dan, who says no? Who says no? When you go back over the last 40 years, and nobody knows this better than you do in North American sports, and you think about the transformational coaching jobs, we could talk about Mike Krzyzewski leaving West Point and creating Duke basketball. You could talk about Jim Calhoun going from Northeastern to UConn men's basketball. You could talk about Gino Auriemma and women's basketball. But when you think about where they've been for over 100 years and what he's done in 2 years, I say this a lot, the data is overwhelming that college coaches fail, but what in Kurt Signetti's background would lead you to believe that he wouldn't be successful?
I always look at style. That style works in college. Does it work, with pro players? So that would be the first thing I would say.
Dan, you're a former professional baseball player. You gravitated to coaches who made you better, that would ultimately make you more money. And there's a lot of different styles that work in the NFL across the board. And if Kurt Signetti walked into that building with the credibility he has, and he's won at Indiana University in Pennsylvania, he's won at James Madison, he won at Indiana where no one's ever won before. If I'm a player, this man may be able to put more money in my pocket. I'm going to give him a chance.
Okay, next on that coaching vacancy list.
Cleveland, I look, the situation in Cleveland is they have some good young players. They had a productive draft this year. Carson Schlesinger, I think Quinshawn Junkins will be a good player. Harold Fannin should be a good player. But the offensive line isn't where it once was. And obviously the quarterback position has massive question marks from Deshaun Watson. Shedeur Sanders, who I liked a lot, I thought he was a second-round pick coming out. But there's a lot of questions about who's going to be quarterback there. So that's why, to me, Vegas and Cleveland have their challenges.
Okay, why isn't the elephant is in the room, and it's Deshaun Watson. If he was practicing with the team, he's under contract. Is he going to get a chance to be the starting quarterback for the Browns next season?
Possibly, but he's a Band-Aid because he's finally, they're over the guaranteed money next year. So possibly, but we need, if you and I are running the Browns, job 1, 2, and 3 is to get that position solidified. Dylan Gabriel is a 2, probably a 3. Shedeur may be a fringe starter. What do we have there? And does Deshaun Watson help us get the new coach established? Possibly. But at the end of the day, we got to go get a new quarterback.
Yeah, but man, that job, as much as you get a great fan base and you do have some talent there, you're still walking into a situation where ownership or GM decided they were going to go rogue with, their quarterbacks. And you can't have 2 rookie quarterbacks. I mean, that to me is malpractice and with the Cleveland Browns.
I understand. And look, Shedeur may make it. He certainly can. I'm just saying, let's not put our eggs in his basket. Let's go get another one. That's why I think that's in the bottom of the 6 jobs. That's still to be in the bottom tier.
All right. Next on the list?
I would go with the Giants. I like Jackson Dart. A little concerned about his completion percentage. Was near the bottom this year, 27th heading into last game. Obviously, he has to learn how to take better care of himself. Now, I lived that, ironically, in New York. We brought in Joe Girardi, who at the time was the manager of the Yankees, to work with Mark Sanchez on a protection plan, learn how to slide, learn how to shift your body weight. So I think that's a skill you can learn. And one of the things I would tell all these young quarterbacks, Cam Ward, Jaden Daniels, Jackson Dart, part of the evaluation process of you being a great player is a protection plan you need to have, because your availability is part and parcel in the value you bring to this team.
You needed somebody to teach Mark Sanchez how to slide.
Rex Ryan brought in Girardi, and it actually was an incredible afternoon because it really, I think, helped Mark become a better he protected himself better after we met with Girardi. It's a skill, Dan. Look, you're a baseball player. You would know it better than most football coaches, but obviously the nuances of when to go out of bounds, obviously there was that big hit in the New England game. Like, he'll learn from that, but it is a skill to understand how you protect yourself. Peyton Manning, Tom Brady, those guys knew when to throw it away. They knew when to go down. Like, they played for a long time. And Jackson Dart, it's a skill that he could get better at, but that's something he has to work at.
Yeah, but he has to understand that that his mindset. He can know how to slide, Mike, but he has to want to slide. That's the biggest problem I see with Jackson Dart.
Well, the head coach has to make it part of your job description. If you want to play football here, if you want to be your starting quarterback, you will slide. If you take unnecessary and reckless hits, either you're going to get benched or you're going to get hurt. So either one of them is going to make you not on the field. So let's come up with a plan where you could be aggressive. There's times to dive. There's times to go head first, third down, end zone, fourth down. But there's also times where you got to live to fight another down. And typically that comes with experience, maturity. I think he'll get there.
The best opening then is?
Oh, well, you look at Atlanta and Tennessee. I would put Tennessee first. I think when Cam Ward has attributes you can't see, when you're successful at Incarnate Get Word and Washington State and then at Miami, the thing that was most impressive to me was at the Combine last year, talking to Cam Ward's teammates. And he has attributes you can't see. So I'm betting on the character of Cam Ward. Look, Dan Moore was horrific at left tackle this year. Kevin Zeitler's close to the end. They're going to have to fix the offensive line, but they have the quarterback. They have a brand new stadium that's basically being, renovated there. I think Nashville's a great place to attract people. I certainly think that's the best job available.
Explain to me the Falcons.
Yeah, well, Penix, when healthy, is a great player. I think he's somebody that can be a franchise quarterback. Now, look, he's had multiple ACL injuries. I would keep Kirk Cousins. They have great young talent, Bijan Robinson, obviously Drake London. Kyle Pitts has been somewhat inconsistent. To me, that's the second best job, just given, all that young talent. Candidly, I was a little surprised, that Raheem was let go, given that he won 4 straight. But, I understand 2 non-playoff seasons and the standards are high there.
Is there a hot coaching candidate?
Besides the aforementioned Mr. Signetti?
Yes.
Look, I think there's a bunch of guys that would be really, really good. Look, Kevin Stefanski to me has, a good track record and certainly deserves, the opportunity to be in the mix here. There's a number of good coordinators, Luana Rumo, Jeff Hafley, Anthony Campanelli, amongst others. And I don't believe in the dogma of, oh, well, we got a quarterback, we got to go get an offensive coach necessarily. Look at Mike Vrabel, look at Mike McDonald, 2 of the best coaches in the league come from the defensive side of the ball.
Yeah, you're just, everybody wants to move on from their coach, like that's going to solve everything, but it doesn't, right? Because like the Steelers with Mike Tomlin and the Ravens with John Harbaugh, these are Hall of Fame head coaches that you're moving on from. And I said this before, I don't believe in change, just for the sake of change. Like, I got to know, okay, what am I getting? I know maybe what I'm losing, but what am I getting, to replace these guys if you would have to?
Dan, that's very prescient. And the 2 questions I would always ask anybody running a football team is, who are we going to get and how much is it going to cost? And typically when you talk about players, you're talking about cap dollars or draft choices. So, hey, we think this quarterback stinks. Okay, here are the 5 that are out there. Who do we think is better? What's the cost? And then likewise, as it relates to, changing coaches, you're right. Like, and again, I'm a big data guy. Like, the data is overwhelmingly against a college coach. That's not to say that there couldn't be a good college coach, but that just means, like, the sign we always had up in the office was, "In God we trust. For everyone else, we need data." So if we're going to go down that whole, Dan, we got to ask more questions, get good information, and then make the best decision. But you're right. It's a lot easier to indiscriminately let a quarterback go, a head coach go, a GM go, and then realize, oh, well, wait a second. Like, be careful what you wish for. The replacement isn't a certainty.
How do you fire a coach?
Yeah, I think, there's a great book called Radical Candor. And it talks about, as a manager, if someone is surprised when they're let go, that means you've done a bad job managing them. So I think, and I would think the people that I've worked with over time would say this, you have to have real conversations consistently about where we're falling short and what we need to do to fix it. So a coach shouldn't be surprised if they're fired. That means, me as the GM or, president of football operations, the owner, whoever it may be, it's really on them to allow people they've hired. So you got to believe in the process of, why you brought them in originally, why you brought them in, and then if they're not living up to that standard, how they could fix it.
Everybody got fired yesterday. What does it mean if, is everybody now safe as we move forward into this week?
Yeah, well, I think last year was instructive, Dan. No, last year Trent Baalke came out and was the GM of the Jaguars, leading the search. Obviously, Liam Cohn made a great initial impression on ownership in Jacksonville. Liam Cohn pulled out of the search, and then they let Trent Baalke go, and the rest is history. So I think we've probably seen all the changes, but you never know. And that's what's so great about the NFL. Like every day could bring something new. So we'll see what happens.
Good to talk to you as always, Mike. Thank you.
All right. Thanks so much for having me, Dan.
Mike Tannenbaum, ESPN NFL front office insider. You can see him on various ESPN programs, including Get Up, SportsCenter, and NFL Live. And he's such a bright mind when it comes to this. And he's been in a couple of different organizations in the front office. And trying to find that coach, trying to find that quarterback, dealing with your GM, dealing with ownership. Once again, it's rare when an owner doesn't feel like he's the smartest guy in the building. It's really rare when an owner lets the people he hires do their job.